Hello, this is our 17th webinar from March last year, and I'm really proud to welcome you here. I'm Tamara, and I welcome you on behalf of myself and InterVenture. I just want to share a few words about us for some of you who didn't have a chance to meet us or to hear about us before. InterVenture is a Swiss company that builds tailor-made A-star distributed tech teams in Belgrade for our partners. We have more than 20 partners, 20 teams and 20 partners under our roof, but we're still growing and employing. So if you're looking for a change, we have more than 40 open positions, either front-end, back-end, DevOps, QA, and specifically team leads. I will post a link to chat box in a minute so you can take a look. As we mentioned in our introduction, our guest today is Isabel Steiner. When I asked her how she prefers to be introduced, she said either entrepreneur or retired CTO. She is the founder of digiteasy.com. She's ex-CTO at Car4U and Syrup.ch. She was a product manager at Google, YouTube. She was a consultant and much, much more. She has a great experience in working with tech teams. So today's topic is about empowering tech teams. And before we get started, just a quick note. If you want to post a question for Isa, you can use Q&A option at the bottom of your screen, or you can use chat box, but make sure to select participants and attendees if you want your question to be visible for everyone. Recording of this webinar, as I mentioned, will be available on our YouTube channel from tomorrow, so you can rewatch it and reshare it if you like. I think I covered everything. I think that's all, so we can move to the main part of this webinar. Isa, welcome again, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be there. I unfortunately only remote. I would also love to be there in person at some point. Maybe this will happen in August. Let's see.
Hopefully.
Yes. So today I will talk about empowered engineering organization because that's a topic that is very dear to my heart. And as I was introduced, it either sounds like I'm extremely old or I'm extremely impatient and I change companies all the time. And I think the truth is a bit a mix of both, right? So I am actually impatient, but I'm also pretty old. So yeah, most of it was said. Maybe one thing more, I think my absolute happiest time in terms of professional life, maybe also private, I don't know, was when I was in the Silicon Valley in the outpost for Swisscom. That's the picture you see here of that little house. That's where the people of the outpost work. And it was really cool. Unfortunately, I was only there for 1 year. I was supposed to go for 4 years, but then Syrup started and I went back to be the CTO of Syrup, which was also a very exciting time of my life. Digiteasy.com sounds maybe much more exciting than it actually is. So I need that for tax purposes. So whenever I do things that I get paid for, I do that for Digiteasy, but it's actually not that much of a thing. What I do apart from Digiteasy is the Happy Lab. And the Happy Lab is supposed to be an app to make people happier. And that's all we know for now. So why is this topic so dear to my heart, like empowered engineering organizations? I heard a lot of stuff from non-engineers, like these are just a few, right? So non-engineers telling me, oh, don't worry, we already defined the data model. Or my boss telling me like your budget for team events is only 65 francs per year per person. And I went sailing and I got bashed for going sailing with my engineering team, because it was 80 bucks per person. And yeah, I have this twice because it's obviously, it left a big mark. People telling me like, why are you doing hack days while we have bugs in our code? Or people just evaluating external providers on behalf of the tech team, right? Like here is this Russian agency, they will help you with everything. They are already on the payroll. Or engineers don't need a second screen. And if they want one, they can pay their screen by themselves. Oh, how do you know? As a PO, I want an API and stuff like it. We don't have time for refactoring. And this is really just a few And over the years, I got really sad about this situation. And also, right now, there's quite a hype about empowered product teams. So Marty Kagan, he's the god of product development. He writes all these like articles and the book about like, why should you empower your product people? And I thought like, well, we should also empower our engineering people, right? Because if only the product people are empowered, we will end up with much more stories in the backlog, like as a PO I want, because then they feel empowered and then they want to dictate everything. Maybe not such a good idea. So the topics I want to cover today is, why do I think it's important to have an empowered engineering organization? How do I think you can get there? So what is the approach to get there? And what can you do as an engineer or an engineering manager to foster empowerment? So we start with the why. Why is it important, in my view, to have empowered engineering teams? The best talents, I believe, they solve complex tasks most effectively in autonomous environments. That means like if there is something like a problem that is really tricky to solve, and you give it to people who are extremely good, they will solve the problem in the best time and with the best outcome. And I think empowerment in engineering teams, it's not just because we all like to have fun and we all like to have our freedom. It's actually the best thing to do for the bottom line of the company, because there is this like positive circle, right? When engineers are happy, they stay at the company. So you have talent retention, you also attract new talents. And then these engineers, because they're good, they actually have an ambition to be good and even become better. And that's how engineering excellence happens, right? Stuff you do is usually solid. And like this, you create an impact for the company. And this is only possible if engineers have autonomy. Most importantly, when they decide how to do stuff and what exactly to build, but also in a lot of other fields. I think engineers know best how many screens they need to work best, like if they need noise canceling headphones or not. And I'd rather not discuss these like little positions on the bill with my CFO, right? So let's go back a bit to the time when we have like factory workers, and why was it so good for them to work in a factory, like streamline processes? It's because the things they did, the solution was known, and also the path to the solution was known. So it was exactly clear what to do and how to do it, right? So, and then maybe the big thinking, I think this is Ford factory, the big thinking happened elsewhere, right? These people, they just did their job in a certain time, and factories still exist. A friend of mine works in a factory where they fill in stuff in boxes, and he has to do that in a certain time frame, but the job is absolutely clear, and that's why it's maybe fine, it's a factory. I would not like it, but let's say there are some jobs that make sense in a factory. And then maybe like in the 70s or in the 80s, like this is an IBM office, I think, with all the cubicles, management by objective became a thing. So the solution was clear, but how to get the solution was still a bit flexible, right? People could still maybe have input to how to build the solution or how to get to the solution. And this was a step in the middle to get to the final step. This is a picture I found from my old Swisscom office, like the coffee/work/networking corner. And the new environments we have right now, there is like, the solution is not really known, and also the path to the solution, of course, is not known either, right? You have like complex tasks to solve, and a lot of people need to interact in order to find the right solution. And that's why actually I think working like we were in a factory is really not an option, and even IBM cubicles, maybe not. And it's not just about the shape of the office, it's actually about the mindset. So in the best case, you have some C-level and they tell you what is the why. Why do we do things? They tell you the purpose, right? Maybe there's a product management. The product management thinks about what can we do in order to go to this purpose. And then there is some engineering management, and then they figure out like, how can we actually deliver it? When can we deliver it? And the engineering team, together with the engineering managers or tech leads, they work on it. And then at one point they are done, and then it looks great and everything is very proud of what they did. And this would be the ideal solution. But there is also the worst case. And in the worst case, the C-level says, What do we need by when? And sometimes they don't even give you a bigger purpose, right? They just say like, we need vouchers in the checkout by April. Maybe sometimes you hear the purpose is because the board wants it, or the purpose is because we decided so in a meeting, but is there like a purpose that makes me get up in the morning? Hard to say. Then the product management makes it even worse, because they say, okay, this is what they want by then, and we tell you how to do it. And then engineering management, they say, okay, this is what and when and how we should do it. And I can assign it to people, right? I can assign the tickets to people, and then the people can do it. And then of course, everything is late, right? And then the engineering team says, sorry, we're late. Engineering manager says, hey, sorry, we're late. Product management says engineering is slow, and everybody is really unhappy. And this is the vicious circle. Like in contrast to this positive circle here, we have a lot of engineering unhappiness. Not only engineers are unhappy, everybody in this setting will be unhappy. There is talent loss. Engineers maybe resignate. They just don't say anything anymore. There is poor performance, and there is no impact or little impact. And all this is driven by too much control. So how do I think you can get to empowered engineering organizations? Empowerment requires trust, because think about it. If you work together with someone and you don't think they're actually good, and maybe you even think they suck, will you empower them to make their own decisions, or will you empower them to come with you brainstorm? Maybe not, right? So you really need to trust that the environment you work in has their shit together. So ideally here we have the C-level trusts product management trusts engineering management trusts the team, and everything is really good and everybody is really happy. But mistrust, when mistrust is there, it creates misery for everybody, right? Same cycle, everybody mistrusts everybody. And even if C-level thinks they can say what exactly they want by exactly when, they are still not happy, because usually they don't get exactly what they want by exactly when. So here, like, everybody just is unhappy. And then there is also the evil cousins of mistrust, which is micromanaging, finger pointing, fear, frustration, lack of pride. So I think that's one of the most important signals to know that you're in an empowered environment, is if engineers are truly proud of what they build, right? So imagine you're sitting in the bar with a friend from, I don't know, school that you didn't like meet in some years, and they ask you, what are you working on? And you're like, I'm working on this awesome project. And it's so good, and the performance is great, and we got to do these innovative solutions. It makes you feel proud, and it's actually the best feeling I think you can get, because it's not just a job, right? We're spending like at least 8 hours a day on it, so we can as well be proud of what we do. Also, I think mistrust, it is usually or is one also of the reasons for fire drills, right? These fire drills where everybody, like, all hands on deck, and we need to solve this right now, and we need to get to the bottom of it, and you need to work the weekend because we really need to solve it. Also, cover my ass activities, justification, people lose their excitement, and finally they disengage. And I'm sure that we can come up with many more evil cousins of mistrust. So what I propose is that we start changing what we can actually influence, right? We can also complain a lot, and that's fine. And I'm all for complaining, because sometimes it makes you feel better actually, but we can also change what we can influence. And what I'm suggesting today is, because I suppose we have mostly like engineers and maybe other like engineering, close to engineering roles in this webinar. So what I think what we can solve is to build trust between engineering management and the engineering team. Because even if maybe shit goes wrong, like let's say maybe in the product, or maybe not even, maybe just on the C-level, I think what engineering management needs to do is create this umbrella, like I also call it shit umbrella, right? You create an umbrella and you make sure that at least your engineering team knows that you trust them, that you stand behind them, that you want them to get involved when it's about like important questions and so on. So still everybody maybe is not happy, right? Especially where the trust breaks usually. And if this is at an engineering management level, these people can get really unhappy, right? If you have to do the stretch from managing upwards, trying to keep all the balls in the air, like defending your team, making everybody in the team happy, and at the same time trying to not get fired, that's a really big stress, right? And it can be really sad. So second step, you need to somehow enlarge this circle of trust, right? So you need to maybe extend it to the product management or to whoever you work most closely with, because at least like that, you don't have like the stretch every day to keep the people happy and manage upwards somehow. We still don't know if like product managers or whoever else is involved will get happy, or if the C-level will get happy, but at least like, you know, the things you can influence, you already have them. So now comes the most like complex and maybe also controversial part. And also I hope that we can discuss some of these approaches, like what concretely can you do as an engineer or an engineering manager if you think that more empowerment would be better. So I think the most important thing, and where I would like to go in a bit more detail, is work with your team to set up engineering success metrics that make sense. Because if you have those and you can communicate them, you can also transparently show that your team is actually doing well, right? If you have success metrics that go away from, let's say, a roadmap, you know, more to impact, you can say, leave us alone. You know, we have these success metrics, we are on track with them, we know what to do in order to fulfill them. Don't commit to scope and deadline at the same time, right? I hear that so often, like, can you commit to this in Q1? And it's just like, no, for sure not. No matter how detailed it is, you cannot commit to it, right? Because stuff will come up, somebody will change their mind. It's really not wise to commit to scope and deadline unless you have infinite resources. And even then, I think it's a bit of a stretch. I still wouldn't do it, because more engineers don't make things faster sometimes, in the short term, at least. Insist in engineering involvement in the requirements phase, right? Don't let people write all the backlog, all the requirements, like somewhere like where you cannot get involved, and then they come with the finished backlog and they say like, that's what we need to do. And most cases, they already have determined a lot of the tech stack, right? Stuff you want to be flexible, stuff you might want to do a proof of concept. So insist as an engineering manager, insist with UX, with product management, with other roles, with project leaders, that engineering is involved in the requirement phase. Do not accept technical top-down requirements, like stuff like, as a PO, I need an API, as a CFO, I need a new field in the database. This is really the start of all the worst things, right? Because then you follow that, you do it, even though in the back of your mind, you think like, is this really the most clever solution, how we should do it? And you already feel like, maybe not. And then you do it, and then shit hits the fan. And then people will blame you in the end for having implemented something that was maybe not ideal. Also, I think some people might have a good idea what the purpose is, and other people have a good idea about what the technical solution is. And I think it should be up to them to actually decide how to do stuff. Manage upwards and sell your team, right? If somebody's saying like, oh, don't you think your engineers are slow, stuff like that, don't even get engaged in these discussions. You have to be proud of your team. If you're actually not proud of your team and you think you can have a better team, then have the guts to let people go and maybe get other people, but don't complain about your team when others are doing it. I think that's really, I mean, that should be the top thing, maybe. It's really the basics. Because like this, you can maximize talent density, right? Because people feel appreciated and rewarded, and they engage a lot more, and then you get more of the better talents. So actually, every day you should act as if you had the best people in the world and give them what they need. I know that sounds maybe a bit like, black and white. But I think if people come and they want noise canceling headphones because the office got too loud, or they think the coffee machine is shit or whatever, act as if they deserve it, because I think in most cases they actually do. And create a learning culture. Like, don't create a culture of, like, let's say, fear or trying to hide stuff if it doesn't go well, right? Create a culture where people actually also talk about their failures and where people exchange their experiences. If you are in an engineering team and you think that you would appreciate more empowerment, first thing you can do is do things the way you are proud of, or at least try to fight for them, right? If somebody tells you, oh, we can't fix all these bugs we have right now, we need to work on this new feature, and it will be shitty, it will break things, maybe it will make stuff more complex, at least try to insist, try to say why you think it's a good idea to not do it that way. And I think by doing that, it's already the first step to go in the right direction. Also, ask for the reason why. So if you get a user story, or maybe even worse, just a task in the backlog, and you don't understand why you do it, I really don't care how junior engineers are, even if they are like 21 and fresh from apprenticeship, if they don't understand why they're doing it, they shouldn't do it. And maybe if you are afraid of just asking for the bigger reason why, maybe you can start asking for the success metrics, right? How will we measure success? How will this benefit our users? How will we know it benefits our users? And that's maybe a more concrete way to ask for the reason why. Same here, push back on technical top-down requirements. Like, maybe you don't have to say, like, talk to my hand or no over my dead body, but you can maybe say, thanks for this smart suggestion, we will look at it, we will come back to you with the final solution, right? You don't have to send them away right away. And celebrate your success. Like, if you think you did something well, or if the team thinks they do something well, or if a hack day is planned because you deserve a hack day, don't feel ashamed, because some people are maybe thinking that we have better things to do. Celebrate success and be proud what you do. And then also learn from failure. I mean, I remember that time when Syrup was in the very beginning, we just launched, and Linus, the youngest developer, he sat 10 o'clock in the evening, he still sat in the office, and then the CEO came to his desk, and the CEO said, like, oh, did you see we had a bug report today? Is it fixed? And Linus said, yes, it's fixed, but it has to be reviewed and then I can merge it. And then the CEO said, like, no, I don't think we should wait. I think you should merge it, right? It's fine. I approve it, right? And I mean, the CEO today is one of my best friends. So, and we still laugh about this story. So Linus, very young engineer, he goes and he force pushes his code. Like, he didn't talk to anybody about it. And I'm sure that he did solid work, right? So he integrates his code, and then 5 to 10 minutes after, I was not in the office anymore, I get an alert from the alerting system that tells me, like, we are losing products. We are like, we have maybe 20,000 products in the store by then, and we were losing them continuously. And I'm like, what's going on? And I write on the Slack channel. And then really, like, soon after, Linus saw that and he said, like, oh my God, it was me. And I will reverse what I did. And I'm so sorry. And then, yeah, it took the shop maybe 2 hours to recover. But in the end, he learned so much about this. He learned so much about automated deployment pipelines. He learned so much about, like, when processes maybe make sense. And Linus, I met him this week for a drink. He is now, like, this was only like maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. He's now the CTO of a Swiss startup, because his learning curve was so fast, because he was like, he was empowered, he had the courage to do things. Sometimes he failed and he really learned from it. So I think that's important. So I want to talk, just like last slide, I want to talk a little bit more about why I think success metrics are really important. If you have success metrics that make sense, you can change the discussion from opinions to facts, right? If you have success metrics for your engineering team and somebody wants to change the backlog completely and, for example, say like, oh no, we don't do this refactoring task right now, we need to do a big feature first, you can go back to your success metrics. You can say that's what we agreed on and it will optimize our success if we do it in this order. So it takes the discussion away from heated opinions. Also, success metrics can help you argue to do the right things right. They can help you to maybe have a bit an eye more on quality than on speed at times, right? So it gives you a really good argument. Success metrics should be impact driven and not a feature catalog or a roadmap. So unfortunately, I've worked in an organization where it was called success metrics, but what it actually was, it was like features that should be launched by a certain date. And the success metric was if it's launched, it's good. If it's not launched, it's bad. Obviously, it's not even a success metrics because you can launch anything if you want, right? And maybe it will even have a negative impact on your conversion or your image or whatever. So that's why I really think that success metrics should always be impact driven. So for example, for quarterly success metrics, maybe they are shared with the product team. Instead of saying implement these 10 must-have epics in the backlog until the end of the quarter, you can maybe say improve the checkout conversion by 10%. Because then you're still flexible, right? You're still flexible if you find out that some of the features are maybe harder to do than you thought, or some of the features maybe don't work because you did a smoke test and people are not interested. You can still change the plan and you can still have success. And then some continuous success metrics that are really good to drag the discussion away from opinions to fact is really like metrics around quality, around performance, around stability, maybe scalability, like really it depends on which field you are in. So let me see. Yes, I already talked. I'm sorry for that. I talked too long. I would like to do a vote with those of you who want to vote. If you have concerns about the platform or privacy concerns or whatsoever, don't do it. If you think you want to vote, you can either scan the code or go on menti.com and enter the code manually. I will leave it here. And then you will see a question which will basically ask you if you even think that empowerment is an important thing or not, because I think that might drive our discussion a little bit. So I can maybe also put the code in the chat. I find it. Here. So that's the code. And I will go here and see what you said. So empowerment is important was the first question. And I think the people who voted, they say like either it is important or it is sometimes important. So far, nobody thought it is not important at all. That's the good thing. And the second question that I'm keen to know from you is, do you actually feel empowered? Very nice. So we see that we actually have a lot of people who feel empowered and some people who feel sometimes empowered. And maybe what we could do is, I would love to hear from you what are your approaches to empowerment? How do you like, or what is the benefits you have from empowerment? And also what can you share with people who either do not really feel empowered or only sometimes? I think that would be an interesting discussion. So I will maybe stop sharing for the moment.
Thank you so much for this. It's really, really useful, not only for tech teams, but it implies for other teams also. It was really, really nice and interesting to hear all about your suggestions. What I wanted to say is that you're not old, you're in your best years, Isa,
Yes,
so
sure.
don't say that. You just have like a ton of work experience and you started young, so.
Sure.
And for others, if you want me to involve you in this discussion, just raise a hand, because this is a webinar format and only the two of us are allowed to talk and you're allowed to see us, but I can invite you to join us, or you can type your question or your situation and we can discuss it together if you're willing.
Yeah, so things I would be interested in is really like, did I miss something? Like, is there people, because I always learn from everybody, right? So if there is other things to mention, if you think I got it totally wrong, this would really help.
Let's see what it. Okay. Joel said, I generally tend to ask questions that go beyond what's actually the task at hand, to improve independent thinking about problems and connected things.
Yeah, that's really nice. Like sometimes maybe if people are younger, they sometimes don't dare to do that, but I think it's exactly the right thing, right? Instead of just asking like, okay, do you want the new database field called this or that? You really ask like, how will it be used? Who will benefit from it? And I think that's a really good input from Joel.
Thank you. Ilya is asking a question. Could you please share your favorite key performance indicators for engineering teams? How do you measure quality, stability, etc.?
A very good one. So there is really like the no-brainers that usually if you are like having a website, you need them, right? And it's usually like the uptime or the downtime. Fortunately, 99.99% sounds like a lot of availability for people, right? And if you measure, for example, uptime, and it's 99.99%, and then it doesn't even include maybe maintenance windows, which I think should not happen that many times unless you're maybe a bank. Even if you're a bank, I think it should not happen anymore that you have to shut down the platform for the whole weekend to do something. But I think uptime is a very nice metric, because you can commit to something that is usually, if you have a little bit of experience or experienced DevOps people, is not that hard to fulfill, right? And you can commit to 99.99%, or maybe you're working actually for somewhere where it's maybe important to have 3 nines, but that's a really nice thing to start with. Then for the quality, so I discovered this metric only maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because we were in a discussion and somebody said, if we only solved more bugs than we were creating, at some point we would not have bugs anymore. And I was like, oh my God, that is actually really smart, right? So what we did then is we said, we have a metric that says that the ratio between solved bugs and bugs that were newly discovered always have to be in favor of solved bugs, right? You solve at least as many bugs as were discovered. This has a lot of cool impact, because it will not make you rush things, because you know that latest in the next sprint you will have to fix it all, right? There is not even the option to accumulate bug depth, right? There is not even like it just doesn't make sense. And I found out that this really helped me for quality. And then for scalability, that's a bit a more tricky one. But I would say, like, I have this ambition of, like, you know, zero touch deployments, everything fully automated. But I also know that everybody in here from InterVenture, they really know their things about automated pipelines. So what I do, if I have to explain somebody why do we invest in engineering setups and engineering environments, I usually tell them, makes everything much more stable, much more secure, right? Because we have like test coverage, for example. Like I also know test coverage can be bullshit because you can write tests that actually do nothing. But for me, it's usually the fully automated pipeline, right? How many times does somebody have to interfere manually? I will think about if I have ever written a blog about them, because I usually end up at the same things, no matter where I work with, I end up at the same engineering success metrics. What I usually don't like is success metrics like stories per sprint and stuff like that. I think this is a vanity metric. It will make you do weird things to kind of like, you know, you can just make the story smaller. Or what often happens in call centers, they have this metric of like ticket solved. They just solve your ticket and then they write you back like your issue was solved. And I'm there like, no, my issue was not solved, but I know exactly where it comes from, right? People had the wrong metrics. Maybe we will go on.
We have 2 more questions.
Yes. Is there a methodology
that covers this subject, or is this straight from experience? Thank you.
I hope there is a methodology, actually. Let me think. So I'm sure there is a lot of methodology that went into my thinking, right? Yeah, the question is where does it come from? So for me, the big method, maybe the biggest of my methodologies is that like agile, agile organization mindset, right? I'm a big fan of the Agile Manifesto. I'm also a big fan of everything like Kent Beck and this whole group does, because I think they really have a mindset of like empowering engineering to also make people grow, right? Because good engineers are really also interested in growing. So I think the Agile Manifesto is a big part. Also, I once tried holacracy with my team, and I have to say it failed big. But what I really like, so I think I cherry picked pieces of holacracy when it comes to this idea of there is like roles and circles, and they should have their domain, right? And nobody should be able to mess with their domain, right? Architecture is a domain that is clearly somewhere in engineering. I don't like business people coming with their architectural diagrams. It really makes me mad. Even I would not even see if they had a good solution, because I'm already so mad when I see them. It's like unbelievable. So yeah, I would say the methodology, some of the methodologies maybe come from these new organizations like holacracy or sociocracy. I think not everything works or worked for me there, but for sure some things worked. Then I'm a big fan of all the DevOps books by Jess Humble and other people who wrote them, because I really think that DevOps is a domain where for me it really shines through why empowerment is so important. I don't think there is one book where I could read this all up. So I think, yeah, I made it up of different things that I heard over the years. Yeah.
Thank you, Isa. And we have one more question.
Yeah.
Finding impact-driven success metrics. How do you get there? What works best for your methodology-wise? For you, methodology.
Yeah. So for me, what works best is OKRs, but really OKRs in the initial ways of OKRs. So I worked at YouTube, right? And they also have OKRs. But there the OKRs were more like a list of things that needs to be launched, right? It felt more like a task list. So OKRs in their initial form were really like impact instead of activity driven, right? You really measure what you want to see in the end and not some proxy in between. And for me, also features are proxies, right? You don't want the voucher feature in the checkout. What you want is more checkout or bigger baskets or better conversion or better retention. So this is what you should measure, what happens in the end. And I think the books about OKRs and also the blog articles about OKRs in their pure form, they cover that quite well. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes in our startup, we have a bit of a struggle coming up with really impact-based OKRs, especially for the prototyping phase. What do you really measure? Like we already had OKRs like 10 iterations per week, and this is absolutely an activity-driven OKR and not impact-driven. Yeah, but my methodology is OKRs.
We have a comment from Andres. He says, yes, there is a lot of methodology, for example, coming from coaching frameworks or social works. One of the keywords to look for is new authority. Unfortunately, there is not much interdisciplinary communication on this area as far as I can tell.
Nice. I will look that up, new authority. I've never heard that. Thanks, Andreas.
Thank you, Andreas. We have a question. What are your opinion starting points when it comes to empowering people more? How to make the breakthrough first steps when it comes to environment that currently would benefit from that? Also taking into consideration different seniority of the people and openness to change versus sticking to the existing way.
Oh, these are a lot of questions in one question. Yeah.
Take your time.
Yeah, so I think there is a lot of ways to start, and not everything works for everybody. I would say I'm quite a bold person. So for me, what works is just risking it, right? I just say, that's what we do now, and there's no discussion. Like if I have a discussion with my CEO about is there a hack day or not, I'm like, it's either my way or no way, you know, and then I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? It's I'm getting fired and I'm getting another job at a company that's maybe even more like fun. It's right. So I'm not really afraid of just trying to be like, I think with the engineers, I'm usually like trying to find out what they really need, what they benefit from. But then with other people who want to threaten the culture, I want to set up, I'm sometimes really maybe a bit mean. And I wouldn't suggest that you all start being mean, but sometimes it really helps if people know what are the boundaries, right? What are your over my dead bodies? So I have a lot of over my dead body, right? I have the over my dead body of some requirements engineers who define system architecture, like that's over my dead body. I have like, oh, I've hired this technical person who can help you with things, over my dead body. I have like we could start with the staging system, so our whole management can see the features because before they can go live, over my dead body. I think what helps is you define your personal limits and then you are vocal about them, right? You think about things that are really important to you, and then you just start like not making compromises there. And then maybe people will sometimes say like, oh yeah, you know, she's a black widow, or other things I've heard behind my back, not from engineers, but maybe from other roles, you know, like she's a mean one, or in Switzerland, we say she's got hair on her teeth. I really don't mind, right? As long as I can protect or build the culture I want and protect it, I couldn't care less what people are talking behind my back. So I think really coming up with the personal limits and saying like, okay, that's how far you can negotiate with me, and that's the boundary. Yeah, and for me, the boundary is like negotiating hack days. No, really not, or staging systems, or so many more things. Tamara,
really important. Yeah.
I think the question was much longer, and I only maybe replied to one part of it, like where can we start if we don't have it yet? Maybe you can bring it back on later.
Okay, no problem. We have two more questions. How about breaking the ice on the other side towards engineers who need encouragement?
Oh, yes, that was the other part of the question, right? How about dealing with people who actually don't want it? So I have this hypothesis. I think some people, so there is this model of comfort zone. Everybody likes to be in their comfort zone. And then there is a fear zone. It is around the comfort zone. And then around the fear zone, there is the learning zone. And around the learning zone, there is the growth zone. And some people, sometimes they need to overcome their fear zone to actually learn that they can grow, right? Or find something like that they maybe were afraid of. And suddenly they think it's a good idea because they tried it out. Doesn't always work, but I think some people just need a longer time to get adjusted to the new ideas than other people. And I think I would not put pressure on them. I really respect that some people have a slower pace, need to maybe look at things first, right? But you always have this group of early adapters. And with this group, you can create like these, like maybe very fun and very successful projects or products. For example, you could send them on a hack day, you put them together and then they do really crazy shit. And everybody thinks like, oh my God, that's also a way we can build it, right? And then they maybe there are others to follow. So I think the icebreaker for sure is not to, I think if you have to force people to do something is never a good sign. So I think what I would do is like give them the opportunity to look at it, and then if they really don't like it in the end, if this is where the company goes and they really don't like it, or even your engineering culture, you can still have the hard talk with them about where elsewhere would it maybe be a good environment for them, right? There are just maybe people who like to get a task list in the morning and as precise as possible with timestamps when the stuff needs to be done. And I really respect that, right? It's maybe just not like, it's not suitable for my style of management, but I really respect that. And I think the icebreaker is really to work with the early adopters to find some people who are as bold as you are, and then try to push the boundaries every day a little.
Thank you, Isa. This is really interesting. Do we have any more questions coming from you? But I think you covered really broad thing. Okay, not exactly related to the topic, but what is the key criteria you choose for people by?
Yes. Oh my God. I have to say my track record in choosing people, I'm a bad engineer myself. Otherwise, I would not have been an engineering manager so fast. So I can tell you, if I would be any good at coding, I would still be doing it because I actually like it. My problem is that whenever stuff runs, I'm really happy. I'm not curious to find out why it runs. I'm like, just, oh, lucky, don't touch it anymore. I have a hard time writing my tests before my code. So there is a ton of reason why I am a bad engineer. But I think what I'm really good at is spotting talent. So out of the 70 engineers that I hired at Syrup, by now, 7 got a contract from Google offered. 7. That is a hiring rate of 10%, right? Google usually has hiring of 0.5%, and not everybody wants to join Google. And really, I understand why. But just saying, like, I think I'm really good in choosing people. How do I do it? That was the actual question. I like curious people, and I like people who are not afraid of speaking their mind. I like people who challenge me, who challenge the team, who challenge themselves without being a pain in the ass, of course. Like that would be bad if you have like 70 people and all of them are a pain in the ass. That's a bit too much. But I like people who are curious, because if they're curious, they will stay at the cutting edge of things, right? I mean, they might be a bit crazy and come up with that idea every day of like, oh, there's this new JavaScript framework. Can we try it out? Can we use it for this? And sometimes you have to maybe slow them down a bit. But the good thing that comes out of curiosity is that people read about stuff, are interested in stuff, are really like on the leading edge of new technology. And then when you need it, they actually already know about it. So I think curiosity and speaking their mind is really important to me, right? I once had a discussion with a junior engineer, and he said, I made a proposal. I don't know what it was about. It was about tech stack. And he said, yeah, that's how they did it when you were young. I will show you now how it's done. And then he went to the flip chart, and this is when React was really a new thing. And he showed me what React can do and why compiling stuff is not necessary more, and all of these things. So people who challenge me themselves, who are curious. And also I like people who are interested in the reason why, people who are looking for the bigger picture. Not everybody needs to be like this, right? But I like a good density of people who are actually looking beyond the solution, who are truly interested to make an impact. And then, of course, I mean, basic engineering skills. For me, how you code right now is less important than what I think the growth path will path will be, because I've seen so many very young engineers and they start, and then if you give them 2 years and you give them a good environment, they get so good, right? So I think that the projection of where somebody will be in 2, 3, or 5 years is much more important than the level they have now. I usually actually have people, when I hire people, they are somehow part of the network. Maybe I don't know them directly, but they have either heard about me, or I have heard about them, or they have worked with someone I know personally. And even if this is over 2 hops, it still helps, right? Because not everybody might like me as a manager. People might say like, you're crazy, all the freedom, like, you know, like, I just want to know what to do. So it's really important, I think, that you have this chemistry. And I think to know that you have this chemistry, it really helps if you are connected somehow in the network. Yeah, I would say that's mainly it. I value personality as much as I value thorough technical skills, I have to say, because I think somebody can be such a big value to the team. You know, if you just have like, yeah, I don't say the word, a friend of mine always refers to some engineers as, you know, like genius jerks or something. You don't want, if somebody is a genius, but they cannot deal with other people and they don't want to be challenged, they are really not good in discussions, what do they help you, right? If somebody is perfect but cannot talk to anybody or cannot argue about stuff, what do they help you? You would need to give them a task and let them work on their task. And this is not possible anymore today in the environments. They will have to talk to people, at least to other engineers. Maybe they don't have to talk to product managers every day if they don't want to. But that's why I value like a basic personality as much as I like thorough engineering skills.
Do you need to share culture and values with them?
Yes, that's I think if they don't know me already, I really want to make sure that they know what they sign up for, because it's not only me looking for a good coworker or team member, it's also them looking for a good environment, which also goes together with a good manager, right? I don't want them to be disappointed. So I tell them what the values and the culture are, and things that are maybe a no-go and things that are desired. So that maybe helps them to calibrate.
Exactly, it makes sense. Panayotis, hi, he's asking empowerment in an environment that is fragile because of big technical departments, legacy system. How do you find a good balance there?
Yeah, I think it's even more important if you have a lot of technical depth that you start with empowerment, because you will only go back. I think you will only go back to the state you desire if there is at least a certain degree of empowerment. And I get it what you mean, right? You could be that you think things will break when people don't like maybe just act on by themselves, right? But I think what I would start with is actually really good DevOps, really make sure that nobody can break anything. I think that's even more important than refactoring or new features. Make sure people cannot break things. Make sure people can make alterations and they can do it on their own, and it will not break the stuff you already have. And I think it's even more important to have that when you want to go back to a safe state. Maybe if you think there are people who are actually really explicitly bad, or they want bad things, or they want to hurt the company, maybe you should get rid of them first. Yeah, but I see that very rarely.
Misha sharing, I would be honored to have CEO, CTO mindset. Thank you for this knowledge sharing and guidance and leading. I will follow it.
Yes, and if your people need a prep talk, you can always invite me to a brown bag lunch. I will tell them.
Great. Do you think there is a difference in empowering people from different generations? Are there certain styles that are suited better for one group of people, whereas other styles could be better for a different group of people?
So one thing I always thought, when I was younger, I always thought younger people like more empowerment. And I was convinced. And then somebody from another company joined our company, And then he came to me and asked me weird detailed questions like, how should I go with that, about that? How should I do this? And I was like, is there something missing in our success metrics? Like, why are you asking me all these questions? And he's like, you will be responsible. You will have to decide them. And honestly, he was barely 20. And he wanted to know exactly, he wanted to be sure that he's doing the right thing. So I think it's maybe less, or I came to the conclusion it's less a generation problem or a generation gap, not problem, than maybe what's your mindset, what's your background, right? Are you somebody who was maybe punished in your old job for doing wrong things, right? Then you're very hesitant of being bold and making suggestions. I think it's more a question about what influenced people, maybe already in childhood or in school, and then maybe later on in their job, like what influenced them and where do they stand mindset-wise. Yeah, and other styles that could be different. So I think I always strive for full empowerment for everybody according to where they stand. But I think empowerment also means that they will find out where they need guidance and where they don't need guidance, right? The guy who deployed something almost in the middle of the night without like having code reviews from everybody, what he learned the lesson, right? He said like, oh, even if it's maybe 2 lines of code, it can still go wrong. So maybe it's good to ask someone else. So I would say my goal is to have empowerment for everybody. And if full empowerment is there, people on different skill levels will know, I hope, what can they do on their own and where do they want guidance. And if you're in a learning culture where people are actually interested to learn, they will also not fear to go ask someone, right? They will not fear that they failed or fear that somebody thinks that they missed some skills. I go ask people all the time about all sorts of stuff.
Thank you, Isa. One more question coming. I'm under the impression that there might be misconception concerning freedom, empowerment, anarchy, and no rules.
Yeah.
Empowerment, in my understanding, is mainly deciding as a team, defining rules as a team, and committing to them as a team.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, I think empowerment doesn't mean that everybody can go crazy with whatever they want, right? I mean, if your team has decided that 10 o'clock is a good time for the stand-up, you don't come every day and say like, oh, 10 o'clock is too early for me, I cannot make it, right? So if there are in every society, there is rules and guidelines that help, that we can all like live better together, right? Live a happier life as a community. And I think it's correct. It doesn't mean anarchy at all. And I think that if you attract the best talents and if you give them the environment they need, they will very rarely come and really exploit this. So I've never seen that somebody who is a talent, who is clever and who is driven by passion comes and wants to exploit the system. Maybe once, yeah, in all the years, as we know now, a lot of them.
Okay. Anyone else? We have some time left. Use this opportunity and time to ask Isa what you wanted to improve in your organization also. If we don't have any more questions, we can conclude this webinar. Isa, really, it was really pleasure having you here today. Thank you so much. It was really useful and it was really interesting for me also, and I guess for other people who are here today. Are you satisfied with questions?
Yeah, no, really. I'm actually thrilled because we saw that half of the people already feel that they are completely empowered and they see empowerment is a thing. So I hope they were not bored. We will maybe see that. Can give me a 2 stars on my Google Map entry if you were not satisfied. But I was really amazed about the depth of questions that came and also how people are supporting each other with answers. Absolutely. And it was my pleasure.
Thank you all for joining us today. I would like to invite you to follow us. Oh, we have one more question.
Not bored at all.
Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you. Good to know.
Thank you, Nebusha. I would like to invite you to follow us on LinkedIn and other social media platforms to be in loop with all the future events that we are planning. Maybe Isa will join us again in the future. We will have summer break with our webinars, but we will come back on September. Just before I end this call, I think we have one more question. Oh no, we have a message. Thank you. Andres telling us thank you. Yes, I mentioned recording of the webinar. It will be available tomorrow on our YouTube channel. I will post the link on for our YouTube channel right away in our chat box.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to be there, and I hope next time I'll be there in person and I can share a beer with all the people I know and all the new people I get to know.
I hope to. And yeah, we will see you on September again. And thank you all for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.